So my first baby didn't have any skin issues, which was interesting. And so it was my second daughter, and she started having the eczema not until she was 18 months. She had little patches. Hers was very mild. It was on her arms, her belly. And I was just kind of like, she wasn't wearing a shirt. It's crawling on the carpet, probably just something like that. But then right around the time, we've always been pretty health conscious, naturally minded, not always, but, when we had young children, we were. So I didn't do gluten until around 18 months. So I gave her gluten, and then she started getting this really bad eczema on the back of her knees. Hers was more mild than some of the other moms, which that was eye-opening once we joined the course and saw how bad some of these kiddos, what they were dealing with, which was heartbreaking. So it did put things into perspective because, when I didn't know anybody else who had eczema, so I didn't know what the severity levels could have been. But hers, I think, was relatively mild. She didn't scratch it. She didn't really seem to bother her, but it was still, for me, you don't want anything wrong to any degree with your kiddos. It was just overwhelming because on a whim, I was like, okay, let's get rid of the gluten, because I did just give it to her. Maybe that's it. And within like 5 days, it cleared up almost completely. So I was like, that's great. And then around that same time, Jeff, my husband, he had bad breathing issues, bad allergies. And we found out with some food testing, sensitivity testing, that he was really sensitive to gluten as well. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. Gluten's a problem. We'll get rid of it and we'll move on. But still noticed that she had some residual issues, the KP bumps and the skin colored bumps. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And then by that time I had my third child, and he, we didn't have gluten. So he had never had gluten, but he still had the very mild patches everywhere. So I was like, well, if we're not having gluten, what's going on? And that's around the time when I listened to your webinar. And I was really interested from learning how to heal from the inside out, but all I knew how to do was to remove the inflammatory foods. That's again, like, it's not easy. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it was the easiest part for us because, we didn't eat many processed foods. We didn't eat the gluten. So I didn't really know and we only drank raw milk from our farm friends. So I was like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, raw milk's wonderful. So I didn't know where to go at that point. I didn't know what to remove. I knew there were still issues. So that's where it was such a blessing when I joined your course, because you went through all of those things. Not only what to remove, but then what to do after you remove the triggers and the inflammatory foods. There's so much more to it after that point. So when we joined your program, the eczema was already gone from Ella, but like I said, they had the KP, and it would flare up quite a bit, which is where, I kind of did some troubleshooting with you. It would be like when they had a fever, or when they took a bath before we had all the filters on our baths, but they would be exposed to the chlorine. It would get all red. So I was like, is this KP or is it eczema? Like, what is this? And so now, I can't even remember the last time that I've even really noticed their KP being an issue. And that was all within your course. And then Jeff, like I said, Jeff, who's a farmer, who's, his toxic levels were different. We did a lot of testing with him as well. And, he used to be a conventional farmer. That's how he grew up. He was raised on a very large conventional farm. And he was the one who handled a lot of the chemicals, did a lot of the spraying. So his toxicity level was very high, especially with glyphosate. So he, I think, was just reacting to everything. And then like histamines, like you talked about, I didn't really know what histamines were, and neither did he. They just always took allergy medicine and an inhaler. He would even need his steroid inhaler to get through the farming season when exposed to all the pollen and the bean dust and all that. So he, when we went through your course, his allergies symptoms improved to almost, there was like almost nothing there. So yeah, so he was really excited, and I was really excited because I had, a newborn, a 2-year-old, and then, my oldest. And so it's so nice when you don't have to make time for the the illness. And, you know, when you're working on the healing from the inside out, it's a lot of work in the beginning and while you're in it, but it's so worth it, because now we haven't dealt with any of that in a long time.